Hello, welcome to another educating episode of the program Agric Economy on ARC and Television, Abuja, Nigeria. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin Amin. On this week's episode of Agric Economy, we shall be taking a look at the impact of commercial agriculture credit scheme on the performance of farmers. When we talk of credit scheme, it will be running through your mind as regards where they can get loans and the rest of it, especially for smallholder farmers. And to discuss this with us is our economist in the studio, Mr. Advert. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. We've at some episode of the program discussed when the federal government came up with the Bank of Industry to give smallholder farmers loan. I remember in the last dispensation, the last administration, and then the former minister, of course, with the BOA, said that this is not going to go through the the associations as regards experiences they've gotten. Leaving that aside, we know that it is usually, very difficult for farmers, especially those farmers that do not have, so to say, insurance to get loans and loans and from either from commercial banks or some of these microfinance banks that gives farmers loan. In all of this, what would be the impact of this loan in their production?
Definitely. The impact of commercial credit scheme on farmers' performance is very, very clear, and it's always positive for those that have access to those schemes. And you cannot compare between those that have that opportunity to those that do not have, because it increases productivity, it also increases profitability, and for those that have access to this credit schemes, it also helps them to expand their production to the level that it can also help them to increase employment for the country. And on the long run, if you look at it at the end of the day, for those that are going out for exports, it also improves Nigeria's earning capacity, foreign currency earning capacity at the end of the day. So it is expected that the effect and the impact of commercial credit scheme on farmers will be very tremendous, will be very positive if a good portion of farmers can have access to it. The ones that have access so far have recorded positive strides. It has really helped them to be able to expand, and it has also helped agriculture to expand in Nigeria as well.
Okay, looking at, like you said, our performances is going to double and the rest of this. We've seen issues and issues as regards getting. What do you think can be the cost of this?
Most of the time, just like you mentioned, insurance, most of the commercial banks and other microfinance banks are always looking for ways to mitigate risk. And agriculture has a very high risk. Number one risk is the risk of weather conditions that is not predictable. We have security risk, and we have also man-made risk, situations where people can just, for one reason or the other, set fire into a farm and cause all the produce to be burnt down or to incur serious losses. When we talk of natural disasters, excessive rains, flood, drought can also affect it. So that is why commercial banks are wary to give credit to farmers. But be that as it may, the federal government, through the interventions of the NAIC and other government platforms, have tried as much as possible to mitigate this risk, to be able to put farmers in a sound footing, to be able to assess a credit scheme. And the commercial banks are now looking at a situation whereby losses due to agricultural loans can be mitigated through having adequate collateral to cover it up. And we all know that most smallholder farmers might not have the requisite collateral to be able to access this facility. So that's where the federal government come in with credit guarantees with adequate insurance for the smallholder farmers, to the extent that when occurrences that can lead to loss happens, then the banks can be indemnified and the loans can be repaid through the insurance or the credit guarantees of the government. So those are the areas we are looking at. And also other innovations are coming up in situations where the land that is being used for farming can also be used as a collateral, and that will be that the titles are perfected and everything is in order, so that the banks can have something strong to hold on to. So those constraints actually affect the smooth flow of commercial agricultural credit scheme to farmers, because the banks also do not want to lend and at the end of the day incur huge losses, or it turns out to be bad loans or non-performing loans at the end of the day.
Okay, going to the areas of loan payment. I know I've spoken to a commercial microfinance bank, a banker in Abuja, who says that it's always difficult. It's better you give a business person a loan to run business, where you know that they are able to pay day to day, rather than giving a farmer who is just, you know, hoping that the farm yields will be able to cover up and the rest of it. And like you said, smallholder farmers here in the FCT that I've spoken to find it very difficult in meeting up with this, you know, what would I put it, the terms and conditions of the insurance and the banks. Where do they go from here?
One thing that is very clear is that the banks, whether microfinance bank or commercial banks, knows that the lending dynamics for farming, agriculture is different from normal businesses. So we cannot use that as a yardstick to give loans to farmers, because the yield, the harvest period, the timeline is far different, and the situations of repayment are also very different. For example, if you are giving a business owner, maybe that is doing buying and selling a loan, you can expect that it can be making quarterly, monthly, or even weekly payments. But when you are giving a farmer a loan, you do not expect that, because it has gestation period between planting season to harvest and to marketing of those products for the funds to be recovered back. So those are part of the issues that will make commercial banks to do their job very well, to be able to see if they have long-term funds to be able to intervene in the agricultural sector. Because farmers, you cannot expect to give a farmer a loan of 6 months and expect repayment instantly, when the gestation period of the crop could be between 6 to 8 months or even a year, and before it's harvested and it is being sold. So, and looking at how commercial banks and even microfinance banks raise their funds, you see that most of their funds are short-term funds from their investors and customers, and they need to tailor it to short-term facilities as well, so that they can have adequate rate of return. So that is where the situation where banks need to dedicate funds for agriculture. That's why most banks have Agric desk, because the funds that is meant for agriculture is not the short-term money. You should be prepared to give funds to farmers at one single-digit interest rate if possible, and at a long maturity period. These are part of the problems that needs to be looked into if we want to be successful in this commercial agricultural credit scheme. Those that have been successful so far have used one or two other means to be able to access these facilities. For smallholder farmers that have maybe buildings of the collateral that can actually stand for them. But it is not every of these farmers that have this. That's why the dynamics needs to be looked into in conjunction with the government, so that it will not be left for government vehicles alone to give loans to farmers. Because commercial banks, as we all know, and microfinance bank have reach in all the 704 local governments in Nigeria. They can easily access these farmers. They can easily monitor what they are using their funds for and other things. So giving only maybe NAIC or agricultural bank that opportunity might not be able to monitor as the commercial bank would do. So that is why it's important that commercial banks are heavily involved. If you look at other clients like Brazil and India, you see that commercial credit is very high and the progress is tremendous. And that is what is expected in Nigeria as well. We can't leave the government alone to bring out loan schemes and monitor it. That's why we saw that the anchor borrower scheme failed most times as regards repayment because of monitoring, because of wrong usage of funds and other sundry problems.
Okay, looking inward now, what can farmers do? We know that some of these farmers are you know, under associations, but majority of them are not, especially the smallholder farmers. Looking inward, how can they start their business?
The truth is that farming business is capital intensive. It now depends on how you want to start, whether you want to start small or you want to start big. If you want to start big, for example, you need to mechanize your farming, in the sense that if you have hectares of land to plant, for example, you need tractors, you need harvesters, you need all sorts, and all this costs money, a lot of money. And if you cannot have that, you need to rent it one way or the other, which also costs money. You also need labor, and you also need other farm implements and tools. So if you want to start big as a farmer, for example, then you must have your projections laid out, and you must have where source of funding is going to come from. But if you want to start small, maybe subsistence farming from the backyard, small plot, gradually, you can now start building yourself. You build yourself, you build experience, you build capacity, and over time, you can now be able to expand along the capacity that you have. Because sometimes we discover that eagerness to start big has made some farmers to, at the end of the day, fail on the long run, because they have not really built capacity to be able to deal in the level that they have started. And with that, they end up not
getting it right.
Yes.
Okay, yes, quickly we'll take a quick break. When we return, the program continues. Stay tuned. Yes, it's still the program Agric on ARCN Television, Abuja, Nigeria, and I am still your host, Khadija Oluwatoyin Yusuf. We have been talking with our guest in the studio, Mr. Gabriel Dakolo, on the impact of commercial agriculture credit scheme on the performances of farmers. He has been, taking us through the impacts of this credit scheme on farmers. He also spoke on how farmers, can get loans and what should be done and what not should be done. While on break, we just discussed about looking outside the box, checking if these Islamic banks can give credit to farmers and the rest of it. You really please, maybe our viewers should also get a knowledge of that. We know that, for example, banks like I don't want to call names, but Islamic banks that are operating in Nigeria do not. I know that they are non-interest rate banks. Why are farmers not running to this kind of places?
The thing is that the dynamics for Islamic banking is far different from the normal commercial banking business that has to do with laid down projections, interest charges, and credit appraisal, and monitoring and the rest. There is so much interest, there's so much concern by Islamic banking when it comes to giving out loans. Because what it entails is that in Islamic banking, is profit sharing. It is not about interest. So when a loan is given for a business venture, it is according to the credit appraisal and conditions precedents to draw down. It is paid directly to vendors or to those that are going to be bought from. And on the long run, the profit made on that business or the losses made on that business is shared by both the customer and the bank when it comes to Islamic banking. But when it comes to commercial banks, the interest rates are given and defined, and after doing their own due diligence and the rest, they allow you to go into your business. Whether you make losses or you make profit, you must pay the bank. That is the way it is. So some farmers have not been able to get the dynamics of using of Islamic banking to be able to actually launch into credit facilities from them. But I believe that the way it's going now, there should be schemes that Islamic banking can draw out to be able to assist farmers as well, to be able to go into their business. Because
if you look at it, I want to believe that the Islamic banking way is even a bit not trying to, draw religious sentiment. It's a bit friendly, looking at how farming business is being run. Looking at the long term, you cannot just put the money, just like if, for example, a business person, goes for loan, that if the person owns a shop, you can be going weekly or thereabout to collect this money and until they'll be able to finish paying. But for agriculture, is for farming is different. And
the gestation period is different. The timelines are different. The payment pattern is also different. Farmers cannot pay short term like other businesses can do because of the gestation period of the planting, the harvesting, sales, and the rest. So truly, if you look at the dynamics of Islamic banking, it can help farmers a lot. A situation where other commercial banks don't want to listen to losses, they can look at your losses and be able to assist in sharing from it so that you will not be the only one that is losing, because we know that there are serious risks associated with farming in Nigeria that we have highlighted earlier. So using Islamic banking dynamics, it could work seriously for farmers if it's properly packaged.
Okay, there's been talk about despite the whole insurance and the whole, there's some level you get to that you cannot get certain amount of money for farmers. I don't know if this has to do with size of farm and what they are trying to go into. How do you think this can be corrected?
The thing is, in insurance, there's what they call insured value. And when we say insured value, what it tells us clearly is that the losses can only be indemnified to the value of the insured. Sure. So if a farm is assessed based on the insurance company has assessed the farm, they have assessed the implement and everything else, and it has a certain amount of value as insured. So the bank cannot give up to that amount, for example, because they have to make projections for profit, interest, and losses that can accrue, and time of repayment. So most of the time, if the insured value is XYZ amount, the bank can say, okay, we are willing to give between 60 to 70% of this XYZ amount based on the insured value. And it is because they know that even when there is the risk crystallizes, the insurance company does not even pay 100% of the insured value, except all the other precautions have been adhered to by the customer,
which is very
rare. So at the end of the day, based on their own valuation as well, it can reduce, and the banks are conversant with that, and that is the reason why some of them will even give 50% of the insured value, looking at the fact that the insurance company can also reduce the value at the end of the day.
Okay, now your word to farmers in looking inward.
Yes, Nigeria, for example, has about 82 million hectares of land, and I tell you that we have only been able to utilize about 32 or 34 million of that. So there is enough capacity. The second thing is that Nigeria's population is growing tremendously. I'm very sure in the next 10 years that the population will be over 220 million, if not more. So the opportunities are bound for farmers to feed Nigerians, one, and to export, because the world population is growing as well. So there is a lot of opportunity for any farmer in Nigeria that is serious with his craft, that ensures that he have long-term and short-term projections, and look at ways and means to ensure that he has staying power to be able to continue in the business. Agricultural business is a viable business. It can generate employment. It can increase Nigeria's GDP. And even as at 2022, we have over 21% of the GDP from agriculture itself. So it's a viable business that every farmer should not be discouraged, but should work towards and ensure that they continue in their craft. Okay,
quickly, your call on government. We know that there have been scheme going on. Just yesterday, earlier this morning, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs went to Kogi State to cushion the effect of poverty and distribution of some sum of money through the state government and the rest of it. We know that most of these states, most of these North Central and the other part of the northern states are predominantly farmers. Do you think there are other ways these assistance coming from the government can go in helping build this sector?
The government has been trying over the years, and but we know that it is still not enough for government to continue to intervene in agriculture. It's a good thing that Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is giving stipends to people to alleviate poverty. But there is a saying that you should teach a man how to fish so that he will continue to feed himself instead of just giving the man fish. Agricultural production or agricultural awareness, input and support is like teaching a man how to feed fish, because at the end of the day it will make them to be self-reliant, to feed themselves, to feed their family, to feed their communities, and to feed the state and the federal government as a whole. So government policies, which even this new government are real, need to be implemented as fast as possible to ensure that more smallholder farmers are encouraged in Nigeria, provided with all that is needed to be able to start up or to continue. We know that Nigeria has about 30-something% unemployment rate, but if we dedicate time for agriculture in the next 1, 2, 3 years, that employment rate can reduce drastically if there is a strong agricultural intervention in all the areas of Nigeria.
Thank you very much for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, on that note, to draw the curtain on this episode of Agric Economy on ARSN Television, Abuja, Nigeria, I am Khadija Oluwatoyin, telling you not to change the dial.